I am Brad Keelor. He is Seth Scheilz. Coming up next on Director's Cut, you're going to hear why his anniversary party is catered by Chick-fil-A. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Director's Cut. My name is Brad Keelor. I'm the director of the Geo-Institute, and that is why we call this show Director's Cut. Every single week, except during the summer and 1 week at the holidays, I sit down with a different GI member who has stories to tell. Some are personal, some are professional, all are fun. You should know that by now, dear viewers. If you don't know anything about the Geo-Institute, after you watch this today, head on over to geoinstitute.org and there you will find out. Last week I said a laundry list. This week I'll go back to plethora of facts about us, including that we are a technical society with about 12,000 members, most of whom are geotechnical engineers and or geologists, and that we are part of the American Society of Civil Engineers. And if you like what you see today, and Seth has his special shirt on, he is prepared, he has prepped these amazing answers, so I think you're going to like it. You should click like, subscribe, and get notifications, and we will let you know every time we post something to the YouTube channel. Coming to us from the Kansas City metropolitan area, the Missouri side, where he is a senior geotechnical engineer with Braun Intertec, and he is also, and maybe we'll talk about this a little later on, a member of the Geo-Institute Local Involvement Committee. It is Seth Scheilz. Seth, welcome, and thank you for doing this.
Brad, thank you for having me.
We have 10 questions today, the same way that we do every week. 2 of them are the same. We start with one of those. Describe your job in 45 seconds.
As you mentioned, I'm a senior geotechnical engineer, so I wear many hats on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes I will be mentoring younger engineers. I engage with clients, field personnel, lab personnel, develop scope, schedule for our various geotechnical projects. I like to focus on the education and transportation sectors, and then I perform analyses and reviews related to geotechnical recommendations for those projects.
I guess this could be awkward because maybe somebody from your employer will be watching, but I will ask you this nonetheless. How do you feel like you ended up there? Do you feel like you had the lion's share, the control over what you wanted to work on as you've gone through your career? And what led you to that, I guess? What made you want to work on that stuff?
I think part of it is the mix of the market and projects that are available here. And a component is relationships with clients. And my mom was a teacher, and my parents were very pro-education, supporting that. I went to Mizzou for my undergrad. I got my master's at Purdue. So obviously lots of education to be a geotechnical engineer. And working on school projects is a way to give back to the community, be involved with the community. It's a, very positive impact, and I find it rewarding.
Oh, that's the magic of Director's Cut. What a great answer to that follow-up question. Thank you for that. We have to get to the fun stuff. We're going to talk about Mizzou, we're going to talk about Purdue, and we're going to talk about, well, a lot of stuff, honestly, later on. But now we start with this. And I always say there's a reason all these questions are in there, right? Well, my wife was kind of sick this week and she slept a lot. And so I wanted to ask you, Seth, what's the longest you've ever slept through in one night?
I don't have anything that comes to mind with long sleeping, but I do have very vivid memories of working full-time while also finishing my thesis. Mm-hmm. I was working in Indiana on a power generation facility. We would, I'd get up in the morning at 6, I'd be on site by 7. I was with the drill crew all day. collecting samples, rock core, logging all that, get back to the hotel, do paperwork, clean up, eat dinner, and then I had a Starbucks venti cup that I got when I flew into Indianapolis, and so I just kept it at Hampton Inns. They have free coffee, and it's there all day and all night. And so I would go downstairs, I would get a venti of straight black coffee, go upstairs, start addressing edits and comments to my thesis. On the hour, I would go downstairs, get another cup of coffee, go back upstairs, repeat. I would drink 6 or so in a night until I got to 2 or 3 in the morning. I'd go to sleep, get up at 6. I repeated that 3 nights straight in order to be able to submit my thesis by the deadline.
Okay, so that was a 3-night thing, because I was thinking,
Yeah.
how could you possibly sustain this over any kind of period of time? That's unbelievable. Are you usually a big coffee drinker, or was that an outlier for you?
I drink coffee daily, but that's probably the extreme of how much I had. The fact that I would drink 20 ounces every hour, and then that last hour, as I started to get tired, I could just go to sleep, and I had that much caffeine in my system. And it was basically like a power nap for 3 hours and get up and go to work.
Well, that's pretty impressive. Wow. I will tell the story sometime of how I woke up and it was 7 p.m. and I missed the entire day. So that's what I thought of when I wrote that question for you. That was a college moment there. Fortunately, that didn't happen as an adult. The third question is always our researcher practice question. And Seth, we have this other show called Field Trips that we do on the YouTube channel, which is people's amazing field stories. I feel like you're going to give us one of those that's field trips worthy today, Seth. You're going to talk about a project that took you to Hartford, and there was a lot more than just the project story here. So walk us through that whole thing.
Yeah, so several years ago, early in my career, I was working on a project in Hartford. As large of a city as Kansas City is, not a ton of direct flights. So you had to connect. So this project in Hartford, they have a combined sanitary and storm sewer system. When a rain event would come in, they couldn't treat all of the water. Raw sewage would flow into the Connecticut River and then into the Long Island Sound. So they were working to resolve that issue. So the project was building an 18-foot diameter, 4-mile tunnel. And with that, we were doing the subsurface exploration. So a coworker and I would go out there for 3 weeks at a time, and then we'd come home on a weekend, go back out 3 weeks at a time. So we're in the Kansas City airport. We're going to connect through Cleveland. It's a 2.5-hour layover, so plenty of time in Cleveland, and then on to Hartford. So there's a thunderstorm, as is the case, in the late spring and early summer in the Midwest between Kansas City and Cleveland. And so we're like, my coworker and I, this is going to be a problem. This is going to impact this flight, may impact the next one. So we go up to the desk and we're like, hey, can we get on a flight to Chicago? Can we get on a flight to Newark? And they're like, no, you got 2.5-hour connection. You're fine. So we sit there and we just watch the flight get delayed. And it's 2 hours. So we go up there, hey, can we get on one of those other flights? Nope, sorry. They're like, no, you don't need to worry about it. You got 2 hours. Continues to get delayed. We're at 1.5 hours. We ask again. We're told no. Get to 1 hour. They're like, no, you can still make an hour connection. And so we're like, nah, I don't think this is going to go well. And so we get down to 45 minutes and we ask to be put on another flight. And they're like, sorry, all the seats to O'Hare or Newark are full. And we're like, so there was the ability to move us and didn't happen. And so now we're stuck on this. So finally we fly, we get there, and we're getting mixed information from the airlines. We're trying to get off the plane and get to the next gate. one person has told us that all the flights coming in are delayed, so we have plenty of time to get to the gate. Another person, as we got off the plane that's at our current gate, says, oh no, like I just looked it up, like it's on time. So we're running across the Cleveland airport to get to the next gate. Of course, we get there and we're delayed. So at least the plane is there. We work through the system. We finally make it to Hartford. But at this point, we've went past midnight. So this then creates problems for the rental car because our rental car reservation was on the previous day. So they're having trouble finding our reservation. Finally, we get the keys and they tell us it's in A6 or whatever. So we go outside. It's this huge Chevy Suburban. And we're like, I don't think that's what we put in our reservation, but we got the keys for it. So we load our suitcases in. We drive up to the gate where they check the paperwork and driver's license, and you're free to go. Cars are pulling up behind us, and the person's like, this isn't the right car. This isn't your car. So then they had to back up multiple cars behind us so that we could back up because they wouldn't let us pull through and like pull a U-ey and come back in. So we back everybody up. We park the car off to the side. Then they have to go find the car. It's somewhere else in the lot. They bring it to us. We load our stuff up. We're able to get out. So from the airport to the hotel, I think it's about 45-minute drive. So we're driving from the north side of Hartford to the south side of Hartford. We get to the hotel. It's about 2 a.m. So the guy at the front desk takes care of my coworker. She goes to her room, and then he's checking me in. And he makes this comment as I'm getting ready to walk away from the desk. He's like, I don't think there's anybody in that room. And I was like, you don't know? It's after 2 a.m. He's like, I don't think there's anybody in there. I said, I'm not going to go on my own and check. I was like, you're coming with me. He's like, okay. So we go up to the room and he opens it. I'm standing out in the hallway. He goes in, he flips on the lights. He's like, yeah, there's no one in here. I was like, okay. So I take the keys. He leaves. I go in. I'm getting ready for bed. Get into bed. It's like 2:30 in the morning. And I hear this noise that sounds like it's outside the door. And I was like, what is going on? So I get up. I go over. I look in, through the peephole. There's no one there. I open the door. I'm kind of looking down the hall. Like, was somebody off a room or something? They're sleep deprived, whatever. It's late at night. Don't see anybody. Close the door, flip the latch. Best thing you can ever do when you're staying at a hotel. Get back into bed. It wasn't 5 minutes. I can hear a key card hit the door, and that door opens, and the latch catches it. And that person realizes they're trying to get into an occupied room, and they slam that door. So I flip on the light. I pick up the phone and call down the front desk. I said, did you just give a key to somebody else to try to get in my room? He's like, I couldn't remember where I put you. And that is my travel story on going to Hartford.
That is spectacular. I mean, so after all that, what was the most memorable part of the project for you? Or was it just completely overshadowed by the adventure of getting there?
Yeah, I mean, I made multiple trips out there. So that was the only bad trip I had. The rest of them were very uneventful. But it was a really cool project. I got to do a lot of in situ testing. And so we're drilling borings. We're taking rock core. Beautiful granite out there. I mean, there were sections where pull it out of the ground. It's one continuous 10-foot section, no fractures in it. Like, I felt kind of bad that I got to break it to put it in the box. But we had this really interesting location where we did an angle boring. So instead of being completely vertical, they lay the rig mast at an angle, and you can drill in on that angle. And so there was an area where they were pretty confident there was some basalt, right? And so as we were drilling, we're making great progress through the granite, and then production just kind of stops. We're not making any progress, and eventually we get the rock core out, and we've found the basalt. It's this beautiful black rock, and very, very hard material. Like you have to hit it multiple times to break it to get it in the box. And when we brought that into the warehouse where we were storing all the rock and talking to the geologist, he's like, I got to make a call. That finding changed the alignment of the tunnel because they didn't want to tunnel through the basalt.
Wow, cool. That's a
Yeah.
good story too. I like that. Oh, all those travel hassles. I mean, which I gotta say, even just going back and forth, and as somebody who spent the night in the Cleveland airport last summer because of those thunderstorms too, I feel a lot of sympathy for you there. That's not a great place to be when it's getting late and you don't know if your flight's gonna go. You mentioned already you got a degree at Missouri, you got a degree at Purdue. I erroneously asked a basketball question about that. You want to talk football? I can do that too. Where do your football allegiances lie? Missouri, Purdue, somewhere else, both?
But yeah, collegiate level, Mizzou. Growing up in Missouri, we watched them when they weren't as good. And then as I got older and went to school at Mizzou, Gary Pinkel was there. They had some great years in the 2000s, winning Big 12 North titles, and it was a lot of fun to go to those games. And then on the pro level, I mean, I'm a Chiefs fan. Growing up, every Sunday after church, noon game, unless they were playing out on the West Coast. Last few years, it's been a little bit more challenging. They're playing every day of the week, time slots all over the place, all over the world. But I've been pretty lucky to win some Super Bowls the last handful of years.
How do you deal with it? Because, my experience like this was actually in hockey. I grew up a Red Wings fan and never really understood that they were kind of hated by a lot of people because they won a lot. And if you win a lot, you have a lot of fans, but you also have a lot of people who do not like your team. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
how has that gone with you as a Chiefs fan? Does it hurt your soul to know there are a lot of people rooting against your team?
No, I mean, we haven't been on the same length of a run as the Patriots were back in the day with Brady, but I get it. I mean, people want variety in sports, and when the same athlete or the same team wins over and over again, it kind of builds a group that roots against them. We'll see if the Chiefs can rebuild and continue the winning ways in the coming seasons.
It is nice to have a team to dislike, though, in each sport. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have that column filled, though, I must say. As we get further and further through Director's Cut in episode 257 or whatever we're on here, there are still questions that I have not managed to ask people. And so, Seth, you got a couple of those coming up, and it's either your lucky day or not your lucky day, I guess. What technology are you happiest that you did not have as a kid?
Yeah, social media. I think social media has probably had a lot of negative impacts on society related to attention and how people engage with each other and interact with each other. I mean, I think it probably causes problems. And I know early on when I was in college, I had Facebook and a lot of other stuff, and it got to a point that I didn't contribute anything. I just wanted to be entertained by other people, and I was like, I don't know if that's good for me. So I gave it up, and outside of LinkedIn, I don't partake in social media.
It does amaze me, though, when I think about the way that we got together to do stuff when I was a kid, that it happened. I mean, you could call people, I guess. But for the most part, we just kind of knew where to meet up or what time of day it would be, or we would bring our baseball gear to school and play on the baseball fields at school after school, and that was okay with no prior planning. It's kind of amazing. I wonder if it's made us and by it, I mean social media and the technology that surrounds it, and kind of being always on, has made us more planners than we were. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of went with the flow and maybe created. There was more spontaneity back in the day because you're right. Like you would you like I had a handful of numbers on my friends' landlines, and like you'd call them, and if they're at home, you'd be like, "Hey, you want to do something?" And if they weren't, you get on your bike and you go ride the neighborhood and try to find them and be like, "Hey, do you want to go for a bike ride? Do you want to go fishing? Like, you want to, yeah, play baseball, whatever." But you just kind of had to see who you encountered and what their interest was, and then filled the time with an activity.
One thing that we were not allowed to do, my parents were very firm about this, is that I was not allowed to go to someone's house unannounced and just knock on the door. And they really did not like it when people did that at our house either. But I feel like this was a really common thing, just to get on your bike, ride a mile or two, show up at your friend's house and say, "Hey, I'm here, want to hang out?" And you were totally prepared to just get back on and ride home if it didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of that as kids, and I don't ever remember any of the parents saying anything that it bothered them.
Well, at a stricter house, maybe. I don't know. I remember one
Eh,
specific incident where I got in a lot of trouble about that. We've made it to the other question that we ask everybody when they come on the show, and it's the nostalgia question. Think back, Seth, all those years peeling away. How did you first get involved with ASCE and GI?
yeah, so as a kid, I spent a lot of time playing in a sandbox, and my grandfather operated heavy machinery, so I was around bulldozers and earth movers and all sorts of stuff. So I was pretty confident for a long time I was going to be a civil engineer. Now I thought maybe the structural path, and I was going to design skyscrapers and bridges and athletic stadiums, whatnot. But in high school, being a nerd, I went to a engineering camp between my junior and senior year of high school. So, friend and I went to this camp at Mizzou, and you get a lot of exposure to all the types of engineering, not just civil. But I remember when I went, and there was a student there named Tom Hiles, and he was talking about this concrete canoe, and my mind was blown. I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "We built this concrete canoe." He's like, "Let's go down to the lab. I'll show you." And we walk in, you got a full length canoe there, and I was like, I'm hooked. How do I do this?" He's like, "Oh, it's a student competition, ASCE." So, you think that's July of the given summer. Finish my senior year, come back the next August, and I was like, I got to find that ASCE thing. I got to be a part of that concrete canoe. And so I was, and I built 4 canoes during my time at Mizzou. And then later on, as I got into coursework, I had Professor John Bowders taught a writing class, and there all the stuff was just processing data that was geotech, and he just made it sound fun. And so then I got more into geotech, and then I was able to get into Mizzou Geo and participate in that. So I actually have my name tag from back in the day.
Wow.
Still got that from being part of MU Geo as an undergrad. And then I was able to go to Geo-Congress in 2010, West Palm Beach. We road tripped from Columbia all the way to West Palm Beach and back, making stops in Tallahassee on the way down overnight and Macon, Georgia on the way back.
Fine metropolises of America to stop in. That's amazing. And coincidentally, as we record this, we just posted today that the Terzaghi lecture at that conference was 16 years ago today. Bob Holtz. So watch that on the YouTube channel. We've got that up there. And of course, our pitch to the viewers, This is a good place to make it happen. Student membership in ASCE was free when Seth was a student member, and it's still free now. If you're a student and you're watching this and you're not an ASCE member, really you have no good excuse. Just follow the link that's down in the show notes below where you're watching this now, and it will take you to amazing worlds of boats made of concrete that float, which that always, I mean, that's my follow-up question, I guess, here. I've asked this one a bunch of times before. How did you explain stuff like that to your friends who weren't engineering majors to make it make sense to them?
Yeah, it is harder to explain. But the one thing I always went back to is just like, even if you're not using lightweight materials, which we were for concrete canoes, glass beads, and whatnot, but you're still displacing that
Right.
volume of water. And so I would always just point to like battleships and aircraft carriers. They're made out of steel and concrete and, whatnot, and they float. So if your math is right, you can make a canoe float.
Everything comes back to physics. That's
The best thing I liked is we would have some students that would come periodically, high school students, and they're visiting. We'd do a little display, and they would always be skeptical about it. And we had our cubes of the lightweight concrete and a 5-gallon bucket of water there. We just throw it in and, bob under and come back to the surface. And then that was like eye-opening for them. So I always enjoyed doing that. It's like a
That's
magic trick.
amazing. I love that. So now we get to the question we teased at the beginning of the interview. And the question, the thing we teased is not quite what the question is, but you're going to get us there, Seth. And the question is a simple one. What's your most expensive fast food experience ever?
Yeah. So when my wife and I got married, we really enjoyed the reception, and we're just like, we should do this with our friends every year. So we got married in January. And that's a product of the timing in between academic semesters and having time off from grad school. And so with that, it kind of aligns with the holiday season. So we're just like, well, we can just have a party every year in early January. So it's kind of at the end of the party season. So we just throw an anniversary party. And over the years, we've done different things. But we've really leaned into the last several years of catering from Chick-fil-A, and you can spend several $100s at Chick-fil-A getting just platters of chicken nuggets and huge bottles of sauces that they give you, and gallons of sweet tea and lemonade. And we always overbuy because we know like our friends will eat a lot, but then we just like feast on it for the next week, that we're just eating chicken nuggets and drinking lemonade.
So we haven't had a good Chick-fil-A conversation on Director's Cut in a while. One of my great frustrations with Chick-fil-A are the seasonal items. I appreciate that you don't want them available all the time because then it's not special anymore. But do you have any favorite seasonal items from Chick-fil-A that you wish they would just stick on the menu all the time?
Absolutely. The peach milkshake should be year-round.
Oh, you had that fast. Mine's the pimento cheese sandwich. That's one of my favorites.
That's a good one too.
Like that one.
I do from the meal side. Yeah, that's a good one.
So we're down to 3 questions left. You talked about that master's thesis earlier on and the coffee that kept you awake, and you were doing some work on glacial till soils, I believe, at that point. I'm a Michigander. A lot of glacial till soils in Michigan. And I remember digging as a kid. Before we recorded, I told you the story of my dad tilling for our garden in our backyard and me having to go pick the rocks out of it. And then when we moved to Virginia, noticing that the soil strata was just completely different. Seth, you're the expert here. I got to ask you, what are 3 things about glacial till soil that every geotechnical or civil engineer should know?
Yeah, so I think it's variation, variation, and variation. And when you think about how it's deposited. One, it's the source material that was near the glacier when it started pushing material and compressing it. So all that varies. When we look at regions throughout glaciated areas, some of them have experienced different cycles of glaciation. So a glacier comes and then it retreats, and you'll get meltwaters that has some outwash, or you might have some fluvial material in there. And then another glacier comes over the top of it and compresses it. So then you're getting these intermixed layers of till with outwash and other components, and then more till. So that impacts the site. And then that thickness of material. And so here in the Kansas City area, the Missouri River approximates the boundary for the till. So to the north of it was glaciated. And then there are loess deposits on top of it. So we have this lean clay that is moisture sensitive and can be problematic with construction that sits on top. But if you can get through that, then your glacial till is stiff enough that it can be a bearing material. And you could use, intermediate foundation solution like rammed aggregate piers or something. So all those variations come together in what you can work with depending on where you're located.
So of all the sites that you've examined or even read about as you were going through this work, where do you think some of the coolest glacial till soils are? If somebody wanted to see this, where should they go?
I don't know if it's exciting. I mean, a lot of times it's just very dense material.
Seth, I don't know. We're dealing with an audience that gets excited about things that are less exciting than this. So,
yeah, I mean, I think it just has a lot of surprises. If you're driving piles in it, or you could be drilling borings or pushing cones, and you hit a boulder, whatnot. Like, it's unexpected, and you got to adjust with it. So it's very unique in some of the challenges of quantifying it.
I'll live with that. I like that. We've got 2 questions left, and I wanted to ask you one. You're involved in one, maybe more than one, I don't know, but I know at least one of Braun Intertec's communities of practice. And can you explain to everybody how these are set up, and maybe what communities they represent, and why it works well within the company? This wasn't a paid placement, by the way. I wanted to ask this question.
Yeah, so I'm the in-situ testing lead. And really that comes from my time at Purdue. I got the opportunity to drive the CPT rig all over the state of Indiana and even out of the state to some projects to push cones. So that's where my connection to in-situ testing really started. But we have a group of people within the in-situ testing group where, I focus on CPT, and somebody else focuses on dilatometer, somebody else on pressure meter, somebody else on vane shear. And the goal is to, 1, organize documents in our quality management system for the various tests, and 2, how to put procedures together for how to process data, how we collect the data, how we're using it in design, and then educating others in the company on how they can utilize it in their projects so that we collect better quality data for our clients' projects. That's the in-situ one, but we also have deep foundations where it's a group of people that focus and specialize on that. So they're doing the same thing for drilled shafts and driven piles and maybe some intermediate foundations. And we're working on setting up one for pavements and one for slope stability. So the goal is these various areas that are common in geotechnical engineering. How do we organize people so that they work in an area of this technical practice that they can support the company and clients for various needs on those projects?
But these are across project teams, right? So these, I'm guessing, are not all people that you would work with frequently on a day-to-day basis, right? To me, that's a lot of the value of this, is that you get to see different faces. Is that how Brauns are set up?
Yeah, so in the in situ testing, for example, there are two of us in Kansas City. There's an engineer in Dallas. There are a couple professionals that are in our Bloomington office where the company's headquartered. So spread across the company footprint.
Fantastic. We're going to close with this one. You've had kind of a big year as it goes related to ASCE. Back in October in Seattle, you became, I guess the term is you were inducted as an ASCE fellow, which is a big deal. If people haven't been to the ceremony, it's very cool. And then coming up in just a couple of weeks at Geo-Congress 2026, and you've got your shirt on right there. You're having your official, I don't think we call it an induction ceremony anymore, but you're having the official ceremony to become a board certified geotechnical engineer. What have been the best things about becoming an ASCE fellow and board certified?
Yeah, so with the ASCE fellow, I think it's showing like a commitment to the organization. So as we talked about going all the way back to when I was a student member, I'm coming up on 20 years of commitment and engagement in various forms with ASCE. So that's, I think the fellow kind of acts as a milestone, and I'm really proud of that. With the board certification, that's more of a technical focus. And I think the big thing that I'm trying to promote there is if you look at like our structural counterparts in civil engineering, there are states out there that have structural engineering licenses. Not all of them, but a good number of them. Where on the geotechnical side, to my knowledge, it's only California and Oregon, and that's really driven by the earthquake and seismic components. So there's not a way for us to stand out as somebody that practices specifically in geotechnical engineer from a licensure standpoint outside of the two states. And I think board certification allows for that. It acknowledges, hey, your peers have evaluated your body of work and your technical knowledge, and they deem that you are worthy of somebody that is competent that specializes in geotechnical engineering.
So one of the things when this program was started in the mid 2000s, it was called DGE within the academies, right? It was a diplomate in geotechnical engineering. And early on, a lot of people treated it as if it was an honorific, and most of the early classes were people who were quite late in their careers. That has started to change, but we still do have to remind everybody that this is not the case anymore, and you can get it. I want you to tell everybody, Seth, how old are you?
I am 37 years old.
And you are becoming board certified, and that I think is a powerful message. We have all the requirements up on the website. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. We'll also put a link about nominating somebody for a fellow or becoming an ASCE fellow down in the show notes so that you can do that as well. And if you would like to see the board certification ceremony in Salt Lake City, just show up an hour early before the seed lecture on Monday, March 9th, and we'll be having it right there in the same room. You can enjoy it, get to know some of the new board certified engineers, and again, maybe get some more information for yourself or a colleague to earn that credential. Seth, you made it through all 10 questions. You did so very, very adeptly, I think, is maybe the word that I will use this week for you. You answered all the follow-ups. We learned about Chick-fil-A. We learned about football and that amazing trip that you had to Hartford. So thanks for all of that. For our viewers, if you liked what you saw, and I always say you're here at the end, so you probably did, click like, subscribe, and get notifications, and yep, we'll let you know every time we post something to the YouTube channel. Seth, thanks again for doing this. I hope it was a good time.
Yeah, I had a great time. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Well, everybody out there, we will be decamping to Salt Lake City very soon for Geo-Congress 2026. We'll have one more episode of Director's Cut before you see me record a couple up on the stage with my guests. So you're going to want to tune in for those. But for now, we will see you in 7 days with another brand new episode of Director's Cut.
Now we're seeing stars, yeah. Now we're seeing stars, yeah.
You will have a unique perspective on this question then, because I don't know how much time you've spent in the DC area. People who live in Virginia act like going to Maryland is like crossing the Sahara into some unknown land. And really, it's like if there's no traffic, it's less than 15 minutes away. But no one in Virginia, it's the same attitude. They will not come to Virginia for anything, like unless they absolutely have to. Is it the same divide in Kansas and Missouri?
No. I mean, I've always worked in Kansas. A lot of the engineering firms are in the suburbs in Kansas. So no, I mean, I cross the state line 2 times a day. Sometimes there have been days I've crossed it 6 times in a day, so.
Is there animosity between the two? Like, I feel like here it gets very political. Like, the perception is that Maryland is much more liberal, Virginia is much more conservative, even though it is way more nuanced than that. But you'll hear from people that live in Maryland, they'll be like, I could never live in Virginia. And there are people in Virginia who say the same thing about Maryland.
I think it probably used to be more that way when Mizzou was in the Big 12, because you kind of had to pick a side. I mean, growing up, like, it was like you had to pick something. And I was like, well, I'm in Missouri and like football, Mizzou, and like can never support KU in anything. That's not true anymore. I like G a lot. We have the GI chapter here has a great relationship with Dr. Hahn and his students at KU. But